Week 14 got a little bit more interesting as far as the NFC playoff picture. Lions win. Are they in the hunt now after beating the Vikings? Vikings 2 seed, getting a little bit more tenuous at the top. And Brock Purdy mania continuing with the San Francisco 49ers. All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson, as always, at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Get those questions into us at Twitter. Tag us for our Wednesday mailbag episode. Whatever your questions are after watching 14 weeks of NFL football and previewing maybe the 15th week of NFL football in 2022. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on that entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. How about this Detroit Lions, Matt? Starting the season 1-6, now making a little bit of a run and even knocking off Sunday their divisional counterparts in the NFC North, Minnesota Vikings. And this is a team that, don't look now, might have an opportunity to sneak into the playoffs after a 34-23 win. Lions still sub 500 at 6-7 right now, but they're playing much better football. My question looking at this game, was this good offense by the Lions or bad defense by the Vikings?
Well, you just said that they might sneak into the playoffs. I think they might roar into. I didn't mean to do that. Lions roar. Sorry, roar into the playoffs.
Yes.
That was a total accident. I mean, is this controversial? I think they're the 4th best team in the NFC. I think if they play the Vikings 11 times, they win the series.
I'm playing the breaking news sounder on that one. The 4th best team in the NFL.
NFC.
Or in the NFC. Okay. Still, that's big news.
That's huge.
The Lions, who in my entire life have won one single playoff game.
Right. I mean, a month into the season, this looked like a disaster. They're going to have 2 picks in the top 6 or whatever. So let's break this team down a little bit, because I think the Vikings defense, particularly their pass defense, is horrific, and their O-line starting to show some weakness too. But the Lions defense doesn't stink anymore. I mean, it used to be start all your fantasy guys against the Lions, bet that over every time. It's getting a little better. Aiden Hutchinson in particular and the pass rush are starting to show up week after week. I'm not trying to sound controversial, but I think Goff is in Pro Bowl consideration this year, especially in the NFC. Like, I'm not saying he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and I've always called him a fair weather quarterback, and I mean that in terms of actually playing in weather versus domes and home versus away. But when things are good, he's good. And I think he's having his best year. They protect him well. They ran the ball extremely well in this game, efficiently. They've got very, very good weapons. And I see the picture here. I mean, we'll talk offseason stuff down the road, but I think Goff is going to be the opening day starter next year. Maybe that's with a rookie. Maybe it's not. But this team's in good shape, and they're going to build a lot of defense over the offseason.
Goff is definitely playing good football right now. Jameson Williams, congratulations to the rookie getting his first career touchdown. It was a blown coverage by that secondary you mentioned there from the Minnesota Vikings, a 41-yard touchdown catch. There was another long toss that was a nice pitch and catch to DJ Chark in that one, and the offense is playing at a pretty high level there for the Lions. And you mentioned start all your fantasy guys against the Lions. That's still the case, though, with Kirk Cousins going
Justin Jefferson did all right.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson, 11 for 223. Kirk Cousins threw it 41 times, completed 31 for 425 yards and a couple of touchdown passes. So the Lions are still a team you want to start your offensive fantasy players against. Is their defense good enough to get them into the playoffs? I don't know, but they just have to play good enough for their offense to score enough points to win some games, which is what they're doing right now.
Yeah, I'm very impressed. I should know his name, but I don't off the top of my head. The Lions offensive coordinator is getting all sorts of buzz for his creativity and usage of these players as well. I'll throw a little something to DJ Chark. I thought that was an underrated signing when they made it, and him and Williams are deep, long, speed guys, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is the straw that stirs the drink. I was listening to Matt Harmon, Reception Perceptions podcast the other day. He's been on the show before. I think he's kind of the receiver expert in the world right now. And he had a group of 7 what he called elite receivers. And of course, Justin Jefferson was in that. But the crux of their podcast was, give me 5 names that might be there next year. And the first name he said was Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, he's not a 4th round pick that's a good story, that's a fun little player. He's becoming an elite receiver.
That combination of receivers
is awesome.
I mean, dude, DJ Chark, your deep ball guy, Jameson Williams, who's still not going to be his full self, I think, this year. We'll see that next year, I'm sure, when he's 18 months or whatever removed from that torn ACL in the championship college game last year. I'm actually surprised he's already on the field in December playing for the Lions.
Absolutely.
But he's a dynamic athlete. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, the chain moving guy, he's so tough. And can do a lot for your football team. That's fun. And I think that you want to play quarterback for that football team at this point, and with the offensive line they're building up front as well. So yeah, things are looking really good right now for the Detroit Lions.
And one of those offensive linemen caught a pass. Penei Sewell went in motion to hit him for a first down. I mean, what a player he is. Yeah.
Amazing. Ben Johnson, by the way, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, who's made a meteoric rise for the Lions. He was offensive quality control just a couple of years ago in 2019. Tight ends coach for 2 years, now offensive coordinator. So
yeah, a lot of buzz around him.
Yeah, absolutely. 36 years old, been in the league already for 10 years and kind of bounced around a little bit, but then has really taken off here with the Detroit Lions. Minnesota Vikings at 10-3. Well, let's stick with the Lions and who they're competing with for the playoffs. The Eagles ran away from the New York Giants, which they're doing every week to every team they pretty much face. 12-1. I don't think we even need to talk much about how good the Eagles are playing right now. But the New York Giants at 7-5, starting to talk about wild card here. And if the Lions can pass up one of these teams, the Giants, the Seahawks, the Washington Commanders, who were on a bye this week, they're within striking distance of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, Giants, Washington next Sunday night, that popped up. I'm like, oh, that's not bad. I mean, the Lions are going to be watching that one intently. I think the Giants, but I've said this probably every week this year, unfortunately, are on the cusp of just cratering, and they were really no match for the Eagles, even though they scored 22 points. But I think the Lions are going to get in, is my bottom line. I think their chances of still playing at a high level are stronger than Washington, Seattle's, and especially the Giants.
The Giants just jumped out to such an early lead, and they've got that tie on the schedule too. So 7-5-1, the Lions still have to make up a couple of games, and there's not very many games left. So the Giants just have to win twice. Basically, they're going to make the playoffs. Because they're 7-1, and that's going to get you in the NFC, I think, most likely. But if it's not the Lions, how about the Carolina Panthers? And guess what? It's easier for them to win the division because they're only one game back of the 6-7 Buccaneers right now. The Panthers knocking off the Seahawks, who were 7-6, also in that wild card competition, 30-24. What is going on, Matt, in the NFL? We're talking about Brock Purdy's, and we're talking about Sam Darnold again, leading the Panthers to potentially now, like the Lions, they were dead in the water, and now potentially trying to make a playoff run in the second half of the season. And we're talking about the guy who started the season with the Panthers, Baker Mayfield, is quarterbacking the Rams right now. This is a bizarre NFL season right now.
It is. And I paid a little extra special attention to this one because Steelers are playing the Panthers next week. So I was look at the upcoming opponent in a little more detail. And they have a formula, and this is obviously a theme throughout the league this year, is teams that run the football voluminously. 46 carries are really hard to play against. And
they don't even care what the result is. They want to
just keep handing it off
as possible. Yeah, to keep that game close.
Yep. And I thought their receiving situation was really interesting in that they targeted 10 different players. Nobody had more than 4 catches. Most of these guys had like 1 or 2. Raheem Blackshear, Shi Smith, Ian Thomas, and DJ Moore, their best guy, injured his ankle, didn't catch a ball. So they didn't ask hardly anything out of Darnold, but when he did, they just spread it around, probably found a matchup to his liking. And their defense, as you've said for years, is aggressive and very good. And Brian Burns and the linebackers, I like their corners a lot. I had a little birdie told me that the people in the Panthers building think C.J. Henderson, the former early first-round pick, was the steal of the world. You know, him and J.C. Horn could be a shutdown pair of corners, kind of like the Jets have. And it allows them to blitz a lot. Seattle had nothing going on the ground. I really like Derek Brown in the middle of that defense as well. So this wasn't fluky at all. I mean, the Panthers were better than Seattle yesterday. I would pick them against the Seahawks again tomorrow. I think they're the best team in their division. I mean, Tampa's a disaster.
All right, we got to talk Tampa next.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers losing in his old hometown, his old home area against the San Francisco 49ers. The Brockalypse is upon us in San Francisco. We'll talk NFC 2 seed with the Vikings, the 49ers, and the Dallas Cowboys next. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Turo. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. You can find any kind of vehicle at any budget for any occasion you need. You browse a huge selection of vehicles at Turo from different hosts for just about any occasion, like, say, you want to travel long distance. You want to take the family. For me, it was going up skiing in Lake Tahoe. A lot of snow. I don't have a 4x4. I wanted to get a Turo vehicle that could get me through the snow. Didn't have to stop and put on chains with my fingers freezing at night, and get up there and be safe traveling up to the snow and to the mountains to do a little bit of skiing with the family, right? You can find a huge selection all across the United States, UK, Canada, even Australia now has Turo vehicles available. We're talking about whatever car, whenever you want, from a local community of Turo car hosts. An economy car. You just need to get from point A to B. You need to go get some groceries. You don't have wheels today. You can find that at Turo. A luxury car for that special event. You can find that at Turo. Maybe an electric vehicle. Find out if that fits into your everyday life before you go buy the next car you're looking for. And many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, available right now as a bonus episode on Locked On Presents. Think Like a Champion, it's a brand new podcast from Russell Wilson and Audible. Russ is a champion on the field, but off of it, we rarely know the grind on the path to greatness. We hear a lot about his grind, but we could really find out exactly what's going on, peek through that curtain at what makes Russell Wilson Russ. Alongside co-hosts Harry Wilson and the late Trevor Moawad, they dig into how high-performance athletes, artists, and leaders push the boundaries of their potential. Hear from a two-time Super Bowl champion and MVP, Von Miller. Sharp insights about performing at your highest level in moments of extreme pressure. Or former NCAA champion and NFL quarterback and tight end Tim Tebow discuss how to find your unique personal mission to the world. I, for one, will be tuning into Tim Tebow talking with Russell Wilson. I think that is just a world I need to find more about, is how those two guys are wired. Olympic medalists, NFL stars, business leaders, you name it. Head over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available everywhere you get your podcasts. Audible, get in the game. You can't write the script for this, Matt. Hollywood would throw it in the trash and say this is unrealistic.
Right.
What the 49ers have gone through. Broken ankle for Trey Lance after trading up for him. Jimmy Garoppolo's not even supposed to be around, but he's hurt, so he ends up coming back, and then he's leading your team and playing his best football. He breaks his ankle, and he's done for the season, and now you're with a 7th-round quarterback. And watching how good the offense was, the first half of this game was probably the best quarterback play I've seen since Kyle Shanahan took over the San Francisco 49ers 5 years ago. That's how good Brock Purdy right now was playing for the 49ers. I don't know how long that's going to last, but the Tom Brady's coming back to his home. He had 100+ tickets for friends and family at Levi Stadium. And the crowd in the second quarter of the game is chanting Brock Purdy's name. They show Brock Purdy's dad in the crowd. He's got tears in his eyes. It was like, what the heck am I watching? Is this really happening? What's going on right now? Then a little bit later, Deebo Samuel with the ankle injury. He thinks it's worse than it is. By the way, it looks like a high ankle sprain, probably
Looked
for
bad.
it's not an ACL or anything like that for Deebo Samuel. But he thought the worst. He's in tears, hands in his face, getting carted off the field. This was wild as the 49ers just dominated both sides of the ball. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers 35-7.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple Bucks notes. I mean, I mentioned I think the Panthers are better than them. I mean, I don't think that I think they're a shell of what they used to be. The O-line's a disaster. I know this is blasphemous, and I wonder if you agree with me after watching every snap, but I don't say Brady's washed, but it's time to hang it up.
I will say this in Brady's defense.
Yeah.
And you talking about the Carolina Panthers. Do you remember what happened when the Carolina Panthers played the 49ers? Their head coach got fired the next day.
Yeah.
And we saw what Tua looked like last week against the 49ers defense, and that was his worst outing of the year. So I will say that the 49ers defense right now has been outscoring teams, I think, 90-14 the last 6 weeks in the second half of games. Like the 49ers are playing at a weird level right now, especially defensively, and they're making a lot of teams look bad.
Yeah.
But
that's a great point.
That said, Tom Brady did not look good in this game. Frustrated, little argument with Mike Evans on the sideline, missing some throws. And even when things go right, there's a holding penalty on his left tackle when they throw a touchdown pass against broken coverage, and that gets called back. So just really a disastrous game for the Buccaneers here. And you come away not thinking that they should be a playoff team, but someone's got to win that division.
Mm-hmm. No, but I mean, you're right. It's a great point about your Niner D. It's real easy to focus on Purdy and Deebo's injury here, but that defense is clearly number one. Like you said, a rare level for today's NFL. I want to throw out a little shout out to Ayuk though too. I mean, I think Ayuk is not in a bad situation, but for a lot of teams would be much more featured receiver. Like you could do a lot better, a lot worse than handing things over to Ayuk for a couple of weeks.
I like, and I've come up with a term for Brandon Ayuk when we talk about the 49ers because they have all these OWs, they call them offensive weapons. They got to do a lot of things. But Brandon Ayuk's like the only receiver they have.
He's a WR, yeah.
Yeah, he's an actual WR. Other receivers like Ray McLeod, you know him from the Steelers days, more of a kick return guy, slot guy. And then Jawan Jennings runs a 4.7 on a good day and is a borderline tight end as a big body wide receiver, and he's a good player.
Even Juszczyk's unique.
But like Brandon Ayuk's the only wide receiver. And guess what? He's in the best situation for being singled up. Nobody ever doubles Brandon Ayuk because they've got so much else to worry about. And they didn't really worry about the Niners throwing deep a lot. But Purdy clearly has more aggressive eyes than Jimmy Garoppolo did, and he's not afraid to get it deep, even though he doesn't have a great arm, but he does have accuracy, and he has touch. And the moment hasn't been too big for the rookie, and that's been most impressive to me. His preparation. Kyle Shanahan hasn't had to change the offense for him. He hasn't had to alter things. He just rolled right in and had the confidence that Purdy's going to get it done. And Purdy hasn't looked like a rookie. So, and Purdy's one of those quarterbacks, hits all 7 of the Bill Parcells quarterback draft commandments, right? Just like, and in this draft, there was 3 of them that hit it. Purdy was one. Kenny Pickett was the other. And,
probably Ritter
and Desmond Ritter, who we're going to see next week. So you would think that he'd be pretty ready to play early in his career, as we've seen from Kenny Pickett for the most part, and now Brock Purdy. So it's been phenomenal. I'm really kind of shocked at how good Brock Purdy has looked. We'll see if he turns into a pumpkin. We've seen it before with Nick Mullins, but I think Purdy's playing better than even we saw Nick Mullins in a short time play for the 49ers. So if Purdy's going to play like that, facilitate his playmakers on offense, the 49ers season is not shot, even though they've had 2 starting quarterbacks go down already.
Yeah, I think you used the term aggressive eyes, going downfield. That's a great term, and I think that applies. It's not that he's better than Jimmy, but he's not a carbon copy. And the other note, which you're obviously aware of, he's a runner. I mean, like he's a weapon as a runner that Jimmy can move, but this guy's a runner.
I heard a really good comp from because I think there's some Kirk Cousinsy there. There's the Shanahan connections, right? And, I could see him potentially having that sort of a career. Maybe he is a starter potentially in the league long term. I don't know. Maybe he turns out to be a backup, but he's at least locked himself into being a high end backup, I think, in the NFL, just from what I've seen so far. I've been really impressed. His preparation, his smarts. But little athleticism. Tony Romo is actually a pretty good comp.
Not
Also, a
bad,
guy
not
that
bad.
was not even drafted. So at least Purdy got drafted, right? So the pedigree there, and a player that can make. He's got a little playmakeriness to him, little bit of athleticism, functional athleticism. Not going to run away from people and make big plays, but get in and out of the pocket.
Sure.
Saw it on his touchdown run, and in the first half of this game, he was on pace for 300 plus yards and 4 touchdown passes and 2 rushing touchdowns, right? And then they shut it down in the second half, and he barely threw the ball anymore. But yeah, pretty impressed by what's going on there. And right now, I think the 49ers, a game back from the Vikings now, game back from where the Dallas Cowboys are, knocking on the door of that 2 seed in the NFC. If you had to put money on it,
Very attainable. I would not bet on the Vikes.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
Cowboys or Niners, right, for that 2 seed?
I agree. And they probably end up, well, Cowboys have to win the division. So I think your Niners get the 2 seed. I mean, Philly's going to be the 1. Dallas will be the 5.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
That's
right.
And they're not going to get there.
Right. They're not going to beat out the Philly. So I think your Niners will end up number 2.
Yeah, the Cowboys are going to end up going on the road against whoever wins the NFC South.
Right, and should slaughter them, but that's
right.
That's rough for Dallas because they're
well, they didn't slaughter the Houston Texans, Matt.
They didn't. I watched very little of that one, to be honest, but I just kept seeing the score, going, "Whoa, when are they going to blow this thing out?" And finally, in the fourth quarter, they did.
It's pretty unbelievable. Finish up the NFC side of things today, then we'll talk AFC and how that playoff picture is starting to look on tomorrow's episode. Next, let's talk Cowboys. Let's talk a little NFC playoff picture and finish up this episode of Peacock and Williamson. But first, I want to let the folks out there know about PrizePicks. What is PrizePicks, you ask? Well, it's daily fantasy, and it's daily fantasy made as easy as you could ever imagine. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. You're not picking an entire lineup. You're not playing against any other people. You're competing just against the projections available at PrizePicks. You go to prizepicks.com or open up the PrizePicks app, and you check out those PrizePicks projections, and you pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on that entry. And PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch, too, because we're talking every day. This is daily fantasy. You can play any sport just about every single day at PrizePicks. Of course, tons of NFL projections, Monday Night Football projections, if you want to get involved in that one tonight. NBA, NHL, PGA, college. We're talking WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, of course, soccer, MMA, boxing, disc golf, cricket, you name it. You can find projections at PrizePicks. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com and sign up to play daily fantasy sports. And first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. You deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50 more to play with. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. This league is so bonkers, Matt, and we talked about some of the storylines that are really surprising. And then you get this game on Sunday where the Dallas Cowboys are favored by 17.5, and we're looking at it thinking, man, the Cowboys could really just blow out.
Enough, yeah.
And not only did they not blow out the Texans, they nearly lost the stinking game, and it was a tight one all the way down to the end. But the Cowboys did come out victorious in this game, 27-23, coming back, needing 10 points in the fourth quarter to do so against the Houston Texans that fall to 1-11-1. The Cowboys now 10-3.
Again, I did not study this game. It was kind of like in the corner of my eye. I'm like, boy, that score's weird. They'll pull ahead. They'll pull ahead. They'll be fine. And then it's like, wow, they're not. And studying it a little bit after the fact, I really think that this voluminous running thing is key. I mean, the Cowboys had 3 turnovers. Houston held the ball for about 33 minutes, even more than that. They ran the ball 37 times and weren't even good at it. 3 yards a rush, but it just narrows the playing field. I mean, so many teams this year. Geez, I mean, we'll talk Ravens Steelers tomorrow. One team ran, the other one didn't. I mean, I think that's really a massive trend in the league right now. Carolina is the perfect example. Early in the season, it was Atlanta, the Giants, Chicago, teams that we look at and say they don't really have any good players, but they're hard to play against because they run the ball over and over and over.
Dameon Pierce, the rookie running back, 22 carries, 78 yards. And like the Texans would take that all day long, right? He had a
Right.
touchdown run as well. There was some funkiness in this game with fumbles and plays at the goal line. One name we have not talked about, I think, all season. He's a guy that I've like looked at on the waiver wire and fantasy. Is like, do I really want to pick up Chris Moore? I need a wide receiver this week. Chris Moore, 10 for 124 yards in this one, has a really nice season. And to be honest, like it's as good as he's playing and playing a bigger role than maybe he would for other teams on the Houston Texans. But we haven't mentioned Chris Moore's name, so I just wanted to throw that one out there.
That's a good one. I mean, he's had a good under the radar career, and you look at their top two receivers and think, well, Moore will be a fine third. Well, they're not getting hardly anything from those guys. And what's the long-term situation with Brandon Cooks? And I also found it interesting, not that I condone it or it's a wonderful idea, but they were rotating Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll in this game. And it adds to that voluminous running thing. Driscoll got 7 carries. I mean, it's just one more way to keep moving the chains and wear down a defense. And obviously they have some quarterback issues.
Some goal line weirdness when Driscoll's in the game, and I saw that, and it's like, well, wait, wasn't Davis Mills supposed to start this game? Why is Driscoll in so early? Yeah. And you realize they're
rotate,
quarterback. But it worked. Just if you are outmatched by your opponent, try something weird and confuse them at least. Run the ball a lot, change quarterbacks, whatever. It kind of worked, almost worked.
It was as good as it could be. I mean, for what they have talent-wise against the Dallas Cowboys, who probably, quote, took them lightly a little bit as well, that's as good as it gets for Houston. So that's a win. You keep your first overall pick. You show some respectability. Maybe you gain a little bit of an identity. Good.
Okay, a couple more notes here on the NFC playoff picture, Matt. And
real quick, folks, we will talk about Herbert and Tua tomorrow. And, we're just going to focus on the NFC this one, and tomorrow will be AFC-based.
Yeah, let us know what you think about it. Breaking up NFC and AFC on Monday and Tuesday episodes here, just so we want to be able to
talk the playoff stuff,
more games and talk a little bit more about the playoff picture stuff and not try to condense it all into one 30-minute episode today. So yeah, Herbert looking good against Tua on Sunday Night Football. We'll get into that game and the AFC picture tomorrow. So right now, as it stands in the NFC, you've got the Eagles who are running away with everything. 12-1 record. They are the 1 seed. They are going to end most likely in the 1 seed unless there's something disastrous that happens here in the final 4 games of the season for them. The Minnesota Vikings still holding on to the 2 seed right now at 10-3. 1 game behind them, though, is the Niners, who are at 9-4 on a win streak, getting good quarterback play from Brock Purdy somehow, which is like just crazy. And their defense is the best in the league. Mm-hmm. The Cowboys are the 5 seed at 10-3. And as you mentioned earlier, not impossible, 2 games back of the Philadelphia Eagles, but unlikely they'll be able to catch them, which means they'll be locked into the 5 seed, which means the 4 seed is going to come from the NFC South no matter what at this point. The Bucs still have it, even though they lost this week, under 500 at 6-7. A game behind the Buccaneers is the Carolina Panthers at 5-8, and the 5-8 Falcons, who are on a bye week, and they're going to Desmond Ridder. Might we see rookie-on-rookie playoff games with Desmond Ridder versus Brock Purdy, with the Falcons potentially getting in, playing against the 49ers at some point in these playoffs? What do you think about the Falcons? Because we talked about the Panthers. They're winning the Seahawks, who are competing for that wild card. What about the Atlanta Falcons and all this, man?
I prefer the Panthers, but I'm very excited about Ridder. I think that's the right move. I think the Panthers D is the difference, but I pulled up the schedule. I mean, what's interesting in the South is, well, they're all bad, but Tampa's last 2 games are versus Carolina and at Atlanta, and they play Cincy this upcoming week. So there's a great chance Tampa doesn't go to the playoffs. Like if you said, Matt, Tampa has a 1-team lead, you can have Tampa or the other 2 teams. I would take the other 2 teams.
Ooh, that's tough for me. I still think Tampa's better. Yeah. It should be better.
Should be.
But they haven't been better. But as bad as the Falcons and Carolina Panthers have looked sometimes, I can't really confidently say, well, they're going to be better, especially since they have to overcome a game from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the Bucs will have that opportunity those last 2 games. And who knows, maybe it's a 3-way tie going into those last 3 games, which will be very, very fascinating and should be a lot of fun. Real quick, we have 30 seconds. Pick 2 teams out of these 4 to get the 2 wildcard spots. Commanders and Giants are 7-5, Seattle 7-6, Detroit 6-7.
I know Detroit has an uphill climb, but I'm going to go with the hot team, and I'm going to go with Washington.
I'm going to go Washington Giants because the tie that they both had together is going to get them both in by a half a game. All right. There we go. Thanks, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen. We're talking AFC tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.